Why is everyone talking about Vinted? What is all the fuss? Is it any good? Should you use Vinted? Should you sell on Vinted or should you buy on Vinted? Today, that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. You guys already probably know that I love Vinted, and it seems like you love Vinted too. I use it for buying and selling. I've done a whole video on sellers tips, so be sure to check that one out. Today, I am focusing a little bit more on the buying side of Vinted, but if you're a seller, don't click away just yet, because you are going to get some tips, because we're going to be tapping into the mind of your buyer, so it's still going to be beneficial to you even if you generally sell more on Vinted. There's some more tips and tricks that I found as a buyer and a seller on Vinted, so if you like all things thrifting, secondhand, Vinted, then do keep on watching. Today we're basically just going to be talking about why this is the way to shop. Hi, for those of you who are new around here, my name is Grace, and if you don't already know and you've not seen any of my previous videos, then I'm a mum of two toddlers. I've got a 3 and a 2-year-old, and I've been selling on Vinted for well over a year now. I've been loving it. I also really like using it as a buyer as well, so that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit more in this video. And my tips and tricks, but they're going to be beneficial for you if you're a seller as well, like I mentioned, because we're going to be tapping into the mind of a buyer a little bit more today. So yeah, make sure you do check out this video, and then I will leave the link to my how to sell fast on Vinted video at the end of this one too. If you're ready, let's dive straight into the whys, the whats, the hows of Vinted. So why should you be buying or selling on Vinted? Well, first of all, selling can help you declutter your wardrobe, streamline your life a little bit, get organised, get rid of those clothes that you just don't wear anymore. It's a great way of recycling, and it's just another way of getting a few extra pennies for things that you might have otherwise just put in a charity donation bag. It's also a really good way of making a little bit of extra cash on the side, because it can be quite a good way of just getting some money back for your items, especially if they're in a very good condition, which is what I'll talk a little bit more about later on in this video. So yeah, you can make a bit of money on the side, you're decluttering your wardrobe, all that sort of stuff. So it's very beneficial for both those reasons. Also really easy to sell and buy on Vinted. Like I said, there is a whole video about selling, so if you are here to learn a little bit more about selling, I recommend you check that video out. Basically, it's just such a simple way to buy and sell. Plus, it's also better for the planet because you are recycling, and it's obviously like the production of clothes is quite a harmful thing on the environment, all that sort of stuff. So it's generally like the way to shop at the minute. Another thing that I really like about Vinted is that you don't get that FOMO that you get with new shop, you know, like shopping, buying new. You've got all the emails coming in all the time, like 20% off new styles, all that sort of stuff. You don't get that kind of fear of missing out on Vinted. It's a lot more of a slower paced way of shopping, which I think a lot of people can get on board with, especially now. The climate that we live in is a little bit more budget, you know, people are looking for a bargain, aren't they? So it's more beneficial to have that slower paced way of buying clothes and things, everything. So I will move on to that in a sec, but yeah, it's a slower paced way of buying, which I think makes you a little bit more measured as well, because even for things that aren't cheap, if you want to buy something that's a little bit of a bigger investment piece on Vinted, I think that, like for me, like if something's like a little bit more than I'm willing to pay and I can't agree on like a price with the buyer, I usually go away, I think about it for a few days, and if I'm still thinking about that item in a few days' time, then I will buy it from Vinted. Whereas I think like with current like fashions and stuff, like, you know, the retail shops, you get that fear of missing out, like get it while it's gone, or like, you know, like when you're looking at a product and you click on the image and it says 50 sold today, all that sort of stuff. Obviously there's none of that on Vinted, so it's just a slower paced way of shopping, which I really tend to like, and I think a lot of other people will too, especially if you are on more of a budget. Last but not least, another reason why you have got to be getting yourself on Vinted if you're not already is you can get some absolute bargains on Vinted. I love Vinted, honestly. I love selling on there and I love buying on there, but yeah, you can really get a proper bargain. So if you you love getting something for an absolute steal, then you've got to check out Vinted. There are some things that are in brilliant condition on Vinted and you don't have to pay the earth for it, so you can shop smart, and it's just such a great way of shopping. I love using Vinted. They are all the whys you should be using Vinted. So what can you buy on Vinted, what can you sell on Vinted, all that sort of stuff. If you're a buyer, you can literally buy new things on there. So when you open up Vinted, you can set filters like you can like when you're doing online shopping for every other app, that sort of thing. So if you don't want to buy something that's secondhand, you will just change the filters to new or a like new condition. But other than that, you can buy literally things that are new with tags on. So if that's all you're interested in looking for, I'd suggest setting your filter to brand new or like new condition. But otherwise it is secondhand, it's thrifting, it's pre-loved items. But even stuff that isn't like brand new, I find a lot of the stuff on Vinted that you buy is in immaculate condition, like really, really good condition. So that is the sort of things that you can buy. If you don't want to buy, like if you're not really into getting secondhand, then I would suggest setting your filter to brand new. So it's really easy to do that actually. I'll put it on the screen for you as well. If you're a seller, then what can you sell and what can you buy? Like almost everything, like obviously within exceptions, and there are exceptions to the rule, but you know, like obviously used cosmetics, that sort of thing you can't sell on there. But like you can buy pet items on Vinted, you can buy baby clothing, baby bedding, homeware, books. I've bought Tony's for my children's Tony's audio box. There is so much on Vinted. It's almost like what can't you buy? There's jewellery, fashion, just so much. Their possibilities on there are literally endless as a seller and a buyer. So this is just another reason why Vinted is exploding at the minute. And my personal recommendations, what are the things that I like buying? Well, as I've got 2 children, something that I do like to get on there are my children's clothing. I just find that for things like their nursery and their preschool, they can get quite mucky, so I don't mind just buying like secondhand pre-loved baby clothes from Vinted that they then go to play school in, and it's just more affordable because your children grow so quickly. You're constantly buying new clothes, so it's such an affordable way of getting new clothes for your children to wear without having to buy them brand new. Like I say, a lot of the time the condition of the clothing is very good or like new, but if I'm buying for their preschool or nursery, it doesn't really matter the condition of it. I'm not that fast. Like I'll pay £1 for like a t-shirt and it doesn't matter what sort of condition it's in because they're just going to go play school. It might get a bit messy, that kind of thing. So I really like buying my children's clothing on there. I've also bought a little bit of gym wear on there. There's Gymshark. I've sold a lot of my Gymshark, basically because I'm a bit of a collector with like gym wear. I know that I haven't even worn my stuff half as much, like sometimes it's like been worn once. I know the condition of it's really good, so I sell my Gymshark stuff. I buy stuff on there. There is just so much that I love to buy on there. And then another thing that I have recently just got into buying is also workwear, because you know, I want to wear nice things to work, but I don't want to have to pay the earth for it. So at the minute, I am absolutely loving Vinted for work tunic, like work tops, work blouses. It's a really good way of getting a nice new work wardrobe without having to like spend a fortune. So I'm actually going to do a whole haul on some Vinted clothes that I've got soon. So stay tuned for that if you do like all the stuff about Vinted. So they're just some things that I like to buy on Vinted personally. Obviously it will be different for everyone, but I just thought I'd let you know that's what I buy on Vinted mostly. And last but not least, how can you make the item yours? And also if you're a seller, now's a good time to listen up, because these are going to be some more tips to help you sell your items as well. You've bought your bargain on Vinted, how are you going to make that item feel a little bit more like it belongs to you and it's not pre-loved? So the first thing, obviously, that I think a lot of people will do to stick the item in the washing machine to just make it smell like your own laundry. Not like a kind of dig to anyone else, but the first thing that I do, even sometimes when I buy my own brand new clothes, I'll put them in the washing machine. Something that I like to do as soon as I buy it secondhand on Vinted is just to stick them in my wash. And I like this because it then smells like my laundry products. It kind of feels like it belongs to me straight away. And it's something that I have been obsessed with in making things smell so good are these Lenore scent boosters. This is the one that I'm currently obsessed with. It's so nice. honestly, it's called Summer Breeze and it is literally so summery, but it just smells so fresh and clean. So the first thing that I will do obviously is to pop the item in the wash, just with all my other washing, so that it smells like it belongs to me. Like I say, it's not a dig to anyone, like, but I'm not saying that I think that it's not been washed or it's not clean, but I just like to know that the item is nice and clean and it's also smelling like my own laundry, if that makes sense. And then another thing that I would recommend on terms of like washing is if something's like not been that looked after, because you can still get a bargain even though it might just need a little bit of TLC. So you can buy this crease release from Lenore, and it's just a spray that will release some of the creases. You don't have to iron. I hate the iron, so I really recommend this as well, and it smells amazing. It's the same scent as those scent boosters, just to kind of make it feel like it belongs to you. And then once you've got your perfume on and it's been on your body a few times, it will smell more like it's yours. So they're just a few things that I use to freshen something up and make it feel like it belongs to me now. I have a little tip in terms of laundry. If you've ended up with something and it's not in the best condition, I would recommend getting some oxy stain remover. I'll put a little cutaway of it on the screen now. It's so good at just like brightening your clothes up. So if something's not as good as you're expecting it to be when it turns up, I'd recommend trying some of them in your laundry, just to kind of brighten the product up, and it might give it a new lease of life as well. So another thing that you can do is you can give it that little bit of TLC, give it a little bit of tidy up. As I mentioned, if you've bought something that's not brand new or in a like new condition, occasionally something can turn up and it's not in quite as good nick as you might have expected it. So for example, I've got this blouse as one of my new work blouses. I will show it in a haul soon, and the neckline was a little bit worn, even though it was described as a good condition. I probably personally would have described it as satisfactory. I still gave them good feedback because I paid like £2 for it, so it's not really, it's like, you know, it's nothing really. Bearing in mind this sort of thing probably would be £50 new. So the neckline was a little bit untidy. So if you're handy with a needle and thread, you can tidy it up. Luckily my mum is incredible. She's so good. Like, I really do need to learn to sew, but when I've got my mum doing it for me, I just rely on her. So she tidied up the neckline for me on this work blouse. It just was a little bit just worn really. It just needed sewing back up. And then something that I think anyone is capable of doing is buying a pair of sharp scissors, like sewing scissors, and even just like cutting away like little threads that are on clothes just to tidy it up is a really good way of giving an item a bit of TLC. It's really, obviously, that's a no-brainer. Anyone can do that. Just like if there's little loose threads, just cut them off, and your item will soon look in brand spanking new condition. That's another thing that I kind of quite like about Vinted. It feels like sometimes if you do get something that's not quite as good as you were expecting it, it's a little bit of a project to fix it up again and give it that new lease of life, which I quite like. We live in such a disposable kind of lifestyle these days. It's nice to actually get an item and give it that TLC, give it a new lease of life. I quite like that about it. Obviously that won't be for everyone. And if my mum wasn't so good at sewing, I would have to try and do it myself. I must try it myself soon. Maybe next year I'll learn to sew a bit better. I could do it, but it wouldn't be anywhere as neat as my mum. Another thing that I recommend investing in if you're going to go into the world of Vinted, and this is just really handy to look after all of your clothes anyway, it's getting one of these lint removers. Oh my god, these are so good. I picked this one. It's from Home Easy. I got it off Amazon, so I will link it down below. It's so addictive. They're so good. It just takes the bubbles off your clothes. I think it was about £15, so very inexpensive. So especially if you're going to be diving into buying secondhand, it will just like make your item look brand new again. So if you've got like bobbly leggings, bobbly jumpers, all that sort of stuff, it's so handy. And then it's also got this other side here. I can't remember what that's called. Hang on. What's it say on here? I think that's a lint remover as well. So basically it's like a shaver. So I'll show you. So you turn it on and it like shaves your clothes for you. So, and then it all collects in here. So all the like bobbly fluff doesn't go everywhere, and it's really easy to then put in the bin. So it's like a clove shaver. And then the other side is also really good at brushing down your clothes and making them look really neat and tidy. So I'd recommend getting one of them. Even if you're not on Vinted, I think everyone should have one of these for all of their clothes, because stuff like leggings, t-shirts, jumpers, they do get bobbly, and it will just give them a new lease of life, and it helps you look after your clothes. So definitely check that out. Again, I'll try and link that down below. So if something's arrived from Vinted and you're not that impressed with the quality of it, pick one of these up. I've seen them in home bargains too, I think, this sort of thing. Very inexpensive, and their USB charge really handy. So that's another thing that as a seller, I would also, I generally try to make sure everything I'm selling is in top quality condition. So I use this sometimes if I'm passing something on and it looks a bit bobbly, I'll just go over it really quickly. It's just a really handy, cool gadget to have. I like that a lot. And last but not least, I would just suggest, if something's turned up and you're really not that happy with it and you've only paid a couple of pounds for it, donate it onto the charity shop. Just cut your losses and put it onto someone else. Someone else might like it, or you could just put it on Vinted again and be honest about the condition of it. Or if you're really unhappy, you could contact the seller. That's probably the best thing to do, but I wouldn't do that over a couple of pounds. But overall, I haven't had any bad experiences, like touch wood, on Vinted, and I think it's such a good way to shop. So I just thought I would chat about some buyer's tips today, and I hope that you have enjoyed it. If you've got any other tips down below, please feel free to leave them. Do you like buying or selling on Vinted, or both? Leave me a comment down below, let me know. And also, if you're not already and you like this kind of content, mum life, all that sort of stuff, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you again for another video. Thanks for watching. Bye.